Greetings, fellow interloper. Welcome to episode 2 of Space Camp for Noobs, a series tailor-made for the absolute beginning player where we break down the fundamentals of No Man's Sky and lay a solid foundation on which to enjoy this game. When we last left off, we were able to stay alive and collect all the necessary parts to repair our ship and get off the initial planet. This now sets us up to learn a lot more about our ship, as well as base building and a variety of other things, so it's going to be fun, so buckle up. First things first, let's get acquainted with the cockpit. So moving left to right, we have the planet name, and here the name that appears is who discovered the particular planet that you're on. In this case, looks like it's me. And beneath that is your coordinates on the planet. When you head in a north and south direction, you'll be changing the first number. Heading south will make the number decrease, while heading north will make the number increase. Likewise, when you're heading east and west, that's when the second number changes the most. The truer you're heading, the less the first number will move. So if you're heading east, the number will get larger, and heading west, the number will get smaller. Don't worry, this isn't quite as important as it used to be, at least at the time of this recording. But if you're giving directions to a certain location on a planet, this becomes very helpful. The rest of the controls are pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, there's the speedometer, and I'm just kidding, I say speedometer, measured in units per second. The center console is what I like to call our live radar. As you move around in space, you'll see that various planets can come in and out of your display, and depending on how close you are, is how close they'll appear to that little triangle in the middle there, which represents our ship. And lastly, we have our ship name here, followed by which particular weapon we have equipped. Alright, so when you finally break free of the atmosphere, you're greeted with a nice collection of asteroids. So you might as well test out that photon cannon. Holy shit, we've come a long way. After you destroy a few, you'll notice that you are actually collecting metals from these asteroids, which is cool because you can sell these at space stations and earn a pretty penny. The silver goes for 186 each, gold goes for 353 each, and well, even though there's no platinum here, I'll switch it over to a system that does have platinum, and you can see they're very distinctive. They have these spiky shapes to them, and those actually go for 505 each. So if you're in a system with some platinum, you might as well spend a few minutes and shoot them up. Alright, so we've got gold, we've got silver, and as you can see, these kind of very soft asteroids that don't explode, those are always going to be precious metals such as gold and silver. So when you see these, you can actually mine these for a little bit. If they explode immediately, they could be a variety of things. Sometimes they're actually tritium hyperclusters. So if you go into your menu, you can see we've got a gold nugget that can be analyzed using X for Xbox, and that actually converts to gold. So make sure and analyze your gold nuggets. Same for that tritium hyperclusters. You can actually click on those and analyze those, and they turn into tritium, or sometimes antimatter. Alright, so when you point your cursor at different planets and you're kind of heading towards them, you can actually run a scan. Initially, they're going to say unknown, but if you hit C on your keyboard for PC players, or N on your left thumbstick, that's when you can run a scan, and it'll tell you the name of the planet as well as all the resources on the planet, which is vital if you're looking for certain elements. But on your initial playthrough, I would urge you to just follow the storyline, because in doing so, you're going to unlock a lot of essential equipment that you can't do without. So you get hailed on a radio frequency, and after you have a small discussion, you'll notice a new objective, which is marked with a red icon. Alright, so here we are, getting close to our objective. So now you hop out and you're going to whip out the analysis visor. Now the analysis visor does have a few different settings on it, and as you can see, we're in target sweep mode. This is indicating where you need to look to and where you need to eventually head to. So as you pivot right, you want to wait for that thing to light up just like that, where all four corners are blinking. That gives you your heading. And don't forget, we're on a brand new planet, so you can scan everything to earn nanites when you upload your discoveries, as well as units after you get done scanning them. Now, I know we haven't discussed the various currencies in No Man's Sky, but we're going to get to that shortly. So now that you've reached your destination, you're going to get two valuable pieces of technology. One is the terrain manipulator for your multi-tool, and secondly, you're going to get a blueprint for your base computer, which you're going to need when you start building any of your bases. And yeah, we're definitely getting to that later. So to install our terrain manipulator, we're going to need some dihydrogen jelly, as well as some carbon nanotubes. And if you remember from episode 1, carbon is readily available from plants and trees. And the dihydrogen jelly are those blue crystals that you see, dihydrogen, that we can craft into jelly. Now that we have the terrain manipulator installed, let's have a little fun. The terrain manipulator has a few different options. The default one is the mining laser, which is for excavation. This is going to come in very handy when we need to dig things up. Also, during bad storms, when you want to get out of the elements, you can just pretty much make your own cave, go in, and you'll actually see your hazard protection reset. Another byproduct of mining is that you get silicate powder back into your inventory as you mine. The great thing is silicate powder is actually used to charge your terrain manipulator, so if you run out of juice, you just simply use silicate powder to recharge. Besides that, silicate powder can be put into a refiner to make glass, which is used a lot in your base building. The next setting is the Create setting, and this is actually pretty interesting. You can actually make terrain. It's not just used for mining only, so as you can see here, I'm just making this huge column of rock. Next up, we have the Restore function, which is really cool. So any manipulation that you've done prior can be reversed using this. So if you see these orange wavy lines, that's basically a easy way to remember that you're in restore mode. So anything you shoot that is orange and wavy will actually go back to where it was before you even got there. So that's pretty cool. Now there will be a little bald spot when you restore the terrain, but the grass will eventually grow back. And the last function of the terrain manipulator is the flatten function. This does, well, pretty much what it says. If you're looking for a nice smooth surface, if you're building a base and you're amongst a lot of rocks and whatnot, you can use this, and as you can see, it shows you where your lowest point is going to be. And as you move that beam over the terrain, it will destroy it, leaving everything fairly flat. It's pretty nice to have. The other awesome thing about having a terrain manipulator is that we can now go to these deposits. So here we see we have a copper deposit. So if we make our way over, we can now use our terrain manipulator to mine these deposits. Now you can actually control your yield a little bit by making your beam smaller or larger. Now the smaller you make it, the better your yield, but it does take a lot longer. And if you make your beam wider using R1 on PlayStation or RB on Xbox, you'll be able to get through this a lot quicker, but your yield does suffer a little bit. So it's up to you. Copper is also known as one of the stellar materials, and one that's readily available pretty much right off the bat. And if you remember from episode 1, we need stellar materials to refine into chromatic metal. And why do we need chromatic metal? Well, that's actually used to build our base computer, which leads us to base building. So we're going to throw our portable refiner in, and as you can see, when we put copper in, if we look at that ratio, it says 2:1. In other words, if we have 500 copper, it will yield 250 chromatic metal. Now that we have chromatic metal, we can throw a base computer down and just get the feel for what it's like to build a base. So once you access the computer, you'll see that it's going to search the archives and let you know if there's any prior claims. Most of the time, there is not. So you want to make sure and claim your base, and you see this animation here. Once this is done, you're now free to build. Now, since this is our very first base computer, it's going to give you some pretty spiffy blueprints to start off with. It won't be all of them, but it'll be just enough to start a base. And don't worry, the game's really going to walk you through your very first base. So once you enter the build menu, it'll direct you to build some floor tiles, and that's all up to you. It really depends on how much material you have. So you start off with the simplest building material, which is wood, and you only need carbon for this. So if you run out, you've got trees and bushes and all sorts of organic material around you. And from here, as you might guess, you're going to need a doorway, some walls, and a roof. It ain't pretty, but it gets the job done. And yeah, I got a little overzealous with my building and ran out of carbon, so yeah, looks like a tiny home for me. Well, you know, it's all the rage, so why not? So after I mine just a little bit more carbon and ferrite dust, I finish up with one more piece of roof, and we have ourselves a base. So one of the blueprints we did have was a construction research unit. So while we do have a few things unlocked, as you can see, this is how we unlock all other materials and all other base parts. So as you can see, this is kind of an unlock tree here. It starts at the top where you've got to unlock the base teleport module, and then you can kind of work your way down. Now the number you see at the top there in orange is how many salvage data you need. And at the top left, you can see how many you currently have. We don't have any right now, so there's nothing we can unlock. So you might wonder, well, how do you get salvage data? Great question. So we're going to step outside now and look around with our analysis visor, and we're looking for buried technology modules. And they're very distinctive because they have a unique symbol. Once we locate one, we can actually mark it so it stays visible when we leave the analysis visor. That's just holding X with the Xbox controller or square on PlayStation. So once you make your way over to it, you'll get close where it says destination reached, and now you'll just pull out the terrain manipulator and unearth the module. And these modules can give you either 2, 3, or sometimes even 4 salvage data. Man, chintzy. We just got 2 there, which is on the lower side. I normally have better luck with those. And that's how you get salvage data. So once you collect enough, you can then use it within the construction research terminal and continue unlocking blueprints as you see fit. Now later in the game, there'll actually be another location that has a lot more blueprints that you can unlock, but don't worry, we'll definitely cover that later. The other thing about the base computer is that it starts with a random name, like Douchey Colony. Are you kidding me? Really? Well, you can change that name. We're gonna change that name. So yeah, let's go with good old Camp Noob. Sounds good to me, right? A little better than Douchey Colony, I think. And one of my favorite things to do is if I've traveled far away from my starship, I can actually summon it by pushing down on the D-pad and then going to the, I always think it looks like a trash can. So you go to your trash can and you summon various vehicles. Well, currently we just have one starship, so you select it, and if it's green, you're good to go. You've got enough launcher fuel to make that jump, because it will cost launcher fuel to do this. Sometimes you don't always have it, and you have to go all the way back to your ship. So if you do plan on traveling far away from your ship and you just want to call it back, before you leave, make sure it has enough launcher fuel. And that is going to do it, guys. Now in the next episode, I hope to get out in a couple days, we're going to be going over all the monetary system, what it's for, how you use it, as well as upgrades, and the lay of the land when it comes to the space station. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This is Taylor with Whiskey Barrel Gaming, signing off.